Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're hailing from. Welcome to another Red Hat Enterprise Linux Presents. Today we are tackling storage, and we came to this topic. Kind of took some time to get there, I feel like, Eric, but I still feel like it's very valid to folks that are maybe queuing up to take a Red Hat exam, any kind of certification test, or oh my God, I have to do something in an emergency situation with storage. So, Eric, please introduce yourself, and let's talk about what we're talking about today.
Yeah. So I
Sorry.
am Eric. No worries, no worries. It's almost Friday, right? We're almost there. So I am Eric, the IT guy Hendricks. I am a technical marketing manager here in the RHEL business unit. So I spend all of my days thinking about how to make systems administrators' lives easier, and doing so with hopefully not having a demo environment blow up. On that note, Chris, I did build a brand new VM, called it Iron Man, based on previous episode feedback, and I think we're ready to go.
Well, that's good news.
We kind of came, like you said, we kind of came to this topic because it's relevant whether you've been a Linux systems administrator for 10 days or 10 years. It's just one of those things that it's a weird thing, because I don't know about you, but I have to Google this about every single time that I go, because let's see, it's a virtual disk first, right? No, you start out in the real world, so it's a physical volume, and then logical, or
I'm telling you, I had to go into Evernote when we were talking about it because it'd been so long since I've mucked with like LVM, right?
Mhm.
Like I was like, dang, that's even in like a different generation of notes app, right? Like it's
Yeah,
like, wow, yeah, I need to brush up on that.
yeah, I had that article saved in Evernote back in the day,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's like, no, I don't need to reread the whole article. I just need these few commands in
These
the right
bits and
order.
pieces. Yep.
So then that
Mm-hmm.
moved to Apple Notes, and then so I'm on to my third generation, because I'm on Joplin now, and still
Nice.
to this day, I work on this stuff all day, every day, and I still have to go in and check.
Oh,
Actually,
yeah.
we'll do this the hard way first, and
Okay.
then I'll show you why I don't need that note anymore. Let's do that.
Oh, eliminating the note. I like this. Okay, cool.
So let me share my screen here.
The
Sorry,
hardest,
we'll
I mean,
just
to be fair, the hardest part for me is LV, VG, PV, right? Like when to do what create, right? Like that's always the
Yep.
hardest part for me. Um, but
Well, and then that's really the hardest part is which
yeah.
order does all this stuff go in? And then
Hmm.
for fun, let's throw out Fdisk, because
Yes. Because
why
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 not?
not add another set of commands in there?
Could you increase the font size on that somehow? Because like I can
No, I
barely
was
read it.
afraid that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Let's
I know
see.
you control
Well,
plus
we
plus,
resized it a little bit in
command
the
plus.
intro. I think it sized itself back when I shared it. Let me see. There it is. I was right. There is a keyboard shortcut.
Aha. There you go.
There we go.
Need
How about them apples?
one more.
One more. Got it.
Well, no, it went down. That's weird. It like defaulted itself back to the original size. Can you please increase the font size? God damn it. No, I'm just kidding. What are you doing over there?
I don't
It's
know.
like getting
Whatever I feel like.
smaller, whatever you're doing. It's weird.
Interesting.
Huh.
It's
Are you like, did you do the thing in Zoom where it's like only take this window?
Yes, maybe that's the problem.
That's probably part of it because you're
Okay.
resizing the window size and Zoom is resizing accordingly as well too.
Let's see.
Hmm.
Gotta love Zoom and all this technology stuff. It's just great. Let's just share my whole desktop. We're going to need it all here eventually.
Yeah, why not? Unless you got an ultra wide monitor, then we don't need all of it.
I mean, like that?
Yeah.
Well, it's not technically an ultra wide.
I mean, that's still pretty wide though, so you're gonna have to bump up the font on everything. Come along, there's the terminal.
How about them apples?
No, that's unreadable.
Unreadable. Okay. All right.
I mean, like, Even with glasses on, I can't read it. We've never had this problem before. Why is this new?
I don't know.
Okay, fair enough.
Zoom, just work. That's all I need you to do.
Well, if not in a windowed state, if you're on a Mac, so Command ++ a bunch. That should, in theory, make it bigger at the same time. What? But every time you move it, it resizes it. That's weird.
Yeah, and everything's updated as of this morning. So, I mean, we could blame Twitch.
Okay, that's working. Keep increasing the size. It's not Twitch because technically it's just Zoom. Okay, there you go. I can read that.
All right.
If you go up one more, I'm curious if that would help. But
I'll probably break the entire wall.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
Cool. All right, troubleshooting on air. Hopefully that's the worst of it today. All right, so I've got Iron Man here. He is a virtual machine running in my home lab, just a generic RHEL 8.5 installed right off of Image Builder. And so if you look, I've got DevVDA. Okay, so let's back up.
Yeah, I was about to say, let's talk about the device.
Yeah, let's back up here. All right, so I'm logged in as root. Don't do this at home. But so to start with, we've got DevVDA. It's a 64 gig disk. It is technically a QCOW2 file sitting on my hypervisor server. It's 64 gigs, but in reality, it's like 2.5 gigs in actual size, but it's thin provisioned. That's actually, that would be a great conversation for another episode.
Exactly.
Virtual machines, QCOW2 files. We saw me working on my hypervisor here at home live on the air a couple of weeks ago. So I might jot that down.
I got a great story. I'll send you a link to it.
Perfect. Yeah, because I think that'd be a good conversation. I would be lost both in this job and every other job I've had without my home lab. So we'll talk about that in the future. But for all intents and purposes today, just assume DevVDA is a disk that's 64 gigs in size. We've got our BIOS system, we've got our EFI, and then about 60, just shy of 64 gigs worth of actual Linux file system. That's the storage we actually have available. And then we've got VDB and VDC. So we've got two disks here, and I intentionally put them at different sizes just for ease of use, because there's no greater problem than, oh look, I've got like 6 disks and they're all a terabyte. Which one's which? So VDB is 32 gigs and VDC is 16 gigs. So just for the sake of making it easy, because live demos are hard, we'll make this easy. And so the first thing we want to do is, I love it, Rapscallion. I'm not even going to go down that rabbit trail today.
Stay here. Stay with me.
All right, physical volumes, virtual disks, and then LVMs. So we look at our disk layout. We've got our 3 different disks. They're 64, 32, and 16, just for the ease of demonstration. So we don't want to touch our system disk. That one's working. We don't want to touch it. So we're going to leave VDA alone, mostly because I don't want to break my live machine. So VDB is 32 gigs. Let's work with that one. So we know that it's mounted, because everything in Linux is a file. So it's actually, that disk is actually present at /dev/VDB. So what we want to do is we want to create a virtual disk or a physical volume off of. See, I'm already messing up. This is why we're talking about this today.
Right, exactly.
So the first thing we want to do is use PV Create.
Okay. Physical volume. That's what
Yep,
that stands for.
That's a physical volume create. So what we're going to do is we're just going to tell our operating system that, hey, VDB is a disk. We want to treat it as such. That way, when we eventually get to our Linux logical volume that's we've got everything layered correctly. So we're going to do a PV create set. Can we say that was
fantastic? That is fantastic.
No wonder autocomplete wasn't working.
Oh, that's the best.
All right. So before you do anything,
you did
else,
a bunch of prep
that...
for this show, right?
I did.
You did a lot of reading.
I did a lot of reading. I didn't run through this. So this tells you how many times I've had this problem as a systems administrator. So the first thing we need to do is actually install the packages to support logical volumes.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to do a DNF install or a yum install, whichever the case may be. And because I've done this before, I know that the package that I need to give us all the commands is LVM2. So that takes care of device mapper, that gives us our PV commands, our VG commands, and our LV commands as well. So can we just say that I did that on purpose?
You did that on purpose.
So now autocomplete works, so I know the package is installed. So we're going to do VDB, and that's going to create a physical volume. What that does is that basically takes our hardware disk and and tells the operating system, hey, this is a hardware disk. I want you to treat it as such. And so we just give it the disk that we want to use. And then, so that's PV create. So you've got the hardware, you've got physical volume. Then the next level up is a volume group. And so we're going to do a VG create, much the same as we did before. And if my brain remembers correctly, we're going to do a -in to give it a name. And so we're going to be super creative because we're engineers and that's what we do. And we're just going to call it a data volume. Different organizations have different naming schemes for volume groups. So a lot of times it's the host name. Other times it's something super, super detailed like data volume. Sometimes if it's like a database disk or something, it'll be VGDB or VGDB01 if you've got multiples. So just different naming schemes. So we're going to give it a name, and then we're going to reference, and technically we're referencing that physical volume now because we've created that, but we give it the same location. So it's /dev/VDB. And of course I was wrong.
Wait, what? You say in?
Is it a capital?
Not in?
Oh, no argument. Okay. So I'm thinking LVM. Okay, so VG create, the name of our volume group, and then the location of the physical volume. So no dash in.
Cool. 2 exit zeros. I like it. All right.
Yep. And as typical with Linux commands, no feedback is good. And so now this is where things get a little bit interesting. So logical volumes. This gives you a lot of flexibility when it comes to creating file systems. In a perfect world, you'd have a separate file system for every aspect of your system, whether that's /temp, because you don't want someone coming in and doing some kind of a data dump into /temp that brings your system down. So in a perfect world, you'd want to separate that out. /var/log is another one that's pretty that I've seen very often can take down my servers.
Oh yeah.
Because you'll get that one administrator or developer or somebody who's doing some work on the box, changes their application or the networking service or something to debug, and then just walk away. You come back a couple hours later and your system's unresponsive. And then when you actually get logged in, you realize, oh, my disk is full. So you start drilling down. You do some du commands to see what directories are.
Where have you
full.
consumed all the disk? Might it be the logs?
Oh, /var/log is taking up 200 gigs worth of space. Yeah. That's probably a problem. And think about it. Those are text files.
Right. Like
sadly, I've seen that. Huge disks, completely full.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
100 gigs, 200 gigs worth of debug logs. It's great. And all of a sudden your multi-$1,000 server is brought to its knees because the disks are full. Go figure. Slash home is another one that's pretty good to kind of cordon off.
Yeah.
And in fact, when you I can't look at the chat anymore.
Just turn it off. Just turn it off. I'll keep an eye on it.
That's awesome though.
Rapscallion, that's fantastic. No, that's become an itch weed. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That's where my brain's at today.
Yeah.
Context switching, it's fun. So in a perfect world, you'd want to try and separate some of these things out. And if your application lives in /opt or /serve, you'd want a separate file system for each of those. And in fact, there's certain certifications, security certifications like HIPAA or FIPS or PCI is another big one that require those file systems to exist. Otherwise, they say, nope, you can't take credit card transactions across the server because it's not separated correctly. So a lot of times when you look at a certification like a FIPS or like a HIPAA, and you've got all these different file systems requirements, then you're looking at something like LVM. So if we do a man LVM2, I believe, nope.
Just LVM.
There we go. So if you do a man on LVM, man stands for manual. So what's great is before the internet and Google became a systems administrator's best friend, you could get all of the manual, all the docs, all the instructions, command examples using the man command. And not only does it give you information on specific commands, but it also gives you high level stuff like this LVM file tells you different commands that are available, different arguments that go with those commands, use cases for it. So if you look, there's like LV resize there towards the bottom to where you can resize a logical volume. And LVM came into play because as disks got bigger and bigger and bigger, I remember my first SSD was 128 gigs and it was probably $500.
Right.
But now I typically don't buy, now I don't buy anything smaller than a terabyte. So as disks got bigger, we needed more flexibility with our file systems. So one day you might need more space in var log. Another day you might need to increase your database size. So LVM allows you to create logical partitions between your different disks. So you can slice and dice one disk. You can put multiple disks into a group together. And you can do that using LVM. So to kind of finish up our example the hard way, we're going to do an LV create, and then we're going to, on top of the man command, you can actually do LV create -- help, and that'll give you an output of just the arguments for that command. So like right here towards the bottom, to create a new LV. Actually, that's to create a cache vol, but we're not going to do that today because I don't want to confuse everyone, mostly myself. But there's different approaches. So different cache vols or to add to a certain pool. So you get a bunch of different options, use cases right there on the command line, right in your terminal. But what we're going to do is I'm going to do this from memory. So what we want to do is do an LV create. So we've got our hardware, we've got our physical volume, we've got our volume group. Now we're going to create a logical volume that only exists within software. So if you were to take this out and to add it in as a secondary disk on another system, it's not going to understand what you're talking about because this exists within software. So what we're going to do is an LV create, and then we're going to, okay, so autocomplete doesn't work just yet. So what we're going to do is a -b and do 100% free. So what that's going to do is we're going to specify our volume group, our data vol that we determined earlier, and it's going to take up anything that hasn't been allocated to another logical volume. We're actually going to add in. We're actually going to include in this logical volume, and then this is where we do the dash in. So we'll just call it LV data, logical volume data. And then we're going to specify our virtual disk. So what do we call it? Data vol.
Yeah.
Oops. I think that's a capital B. Give me a second. Let me grab my note. This is why we have these. Oh, it's a capital dash L. That's why. Double check my command. Yeah, dash L, 100% free. Actually, so you can do the 100% free, or you can specify a logical volume size. So if we've got a 32 gig disk and we want 28 gigs for this LV data partition, and then maybe we've got an LV log partition, then we can do. There's several different ways to specify how big. You can even, if you're super hardcore old school sysadmin, you can actually specify extents. But because I think very visually, I can picture 28 things of 32. So using gigs or megabytes or 100% free makes it really easy to use. So now we've got our hardware, our physical, and then our virtual group, and then our logical volume. So now we've just got 2 more steps. See, this is definitely the hard way. The second disk I added on purpose. And to think, this is a regular thing sysadmins have to do all the time. And by the way, if you take the certification, like Chris mentioned earlier, there's a good chance that this is going to be on that exam. So we've got our logical volume. It's ready to go. It's LV data. So what we want to do is we want to do a make FS, that's make file system. And XFS is, for better or worse, I'm not trying to start a holy war. For better or worse, I tend to use XFS on my systems here at home. So I'm going to do a make file system, XFS. And then under DevMapper, DevMapper is a part of the LVM2 stack. It basically creates common names that you can point to. So instead of pulling out a 25, 26 character UUID, which is really fun to do when you're on a console and you don't have copy paste, you can specify via UUID, or you can use the DevMapper, which is kind of a common name shortcut. Think of it almost like DNS names versus IP addresses. It's kind of the same idea. Give it something human readable. So we know that the volume group dash then the logical volume name. So it should be datavol dash LV data. And then this, depending on the size of the disk that you're working with, it usually comes through fairly quickly. So now that logical volume actually has a file system on it. So it's not just ones and zeros. Now the operating system can actually write content to that logical volume. So the last step, part A, see how complicated this is? The last step, part A, is to mount the file system. So we want to mount DevMapper datavol-lv data to say /serve. Now, if we list the file systems down at the bottom, we can see that we have 28 gigs mounted at /serve, and there's our DevMapper. So if we do a touch serve /hello world.txt, now we see that file. But if I unmount that file system /serve, and then look, our file's gone. And
what happened to it?
Oh, I don't know. Let's find it. So last step, part B, is we want this file system to mount on reboot. And of course, Vim is not found. Just BI.
Wow, you just totally fresh boxed this, didn't you?
I did. Well,
Wow.
with the amount of trouble we had with the system
Fair
the
enough.
last time,
Fair
I was
enough.
just like, I'm blowing it all away.
Makes
So
sense. That's cool.
I called it data
Data
vol
vol. Yeah.
/ lvdata. So we want to tell it where. We'll do mount dash serve, then XFS for our file system.
Mhm.
Just take the defaults, and we don't need to do a disk check. We can talk about that another day.
Yeah.
But this is a typical layout for an entry in etc fs tab. Fs tab handles the disks and partitions on boot.
Mhm.
So the top line handles slash, so the root file system directory. The next line there is the EFI partition, part of the boot process. So now the line that we just added handles the slash serve and points to data vol - lvdata. So that's the disks that we've been working with. So now if we write that file, kind of give us some space here, and then do a mount -a. Mount -a says -all basically. And what that does is it tells your operating system go in and reread that SCFS tab file. So if we do a mount -a, and then we go check our serve directory, our text file is back. So you can go through all of that, and even
lots of rigmarole. Yeah.
Yeah, lots of command line kung fu, and as you can see, even I forget some of the command line arguments, or
Or you
or
know, the
this is
package or whatever. Yeah.
well, yeah, usually helps if you're
So
if you've
yeah,
got
I
the
mean, you've
package installed.
shown us how to do it. Now show us how to do it under duress.
Isn't that what we just did?
Well, I think so.
I
Not
mean, I
quite
didn't have
sure.
Vim installed, didn't have LVM2 installed, but it
Go
is a
fix this
brand new
LVM.
box.
Go fix this LVM problem. First problem, it's not installed.
Well, sadly, that's happened.
I'm sure it has.
So you can run through all of that, and it's great fun. Or see, this is why I don't like how Cockpit initially positioned themselves as the sort
Zoom
of
in on that window. Yeah, thank you.
sort of the new administrator approach to managing things, because this is a brand new box.
Yeah.
Storage. It's got nothing on it. So what you're looking at is the Red Hat Enterprise Linux web UI. It's based on Cockpit, and Cockpit has a bunch of extra modules, add-ons, and one of those I believe is cockpit-storage, which gives us the ability to manage our storage from a web UI. And of course, there's not, so we're going to do a DNS search.
I can't tell you how many times I've had to do a DNF search cockpit dash. There is
storage D.
Yeah, sorry. God, I know. No I probably should have caught that one as many times as I've installed it.
Right. Yeah, I'm definitely with you there. So it's going to install the cockpit-storage D, and then interesting. Oh, there we go. Okay. So the next thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to do a systemctl restart cockpit and log back in.
Yeah.
So I wish I could say that all this was on purpose. These are teachable moments, but no, I just forget things like make sure LVM2 is installed.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we log back into the web UI and we've got our storage option.
Yep.
And truth be told, I had probably forgot about the storage D package because I usually run an Ansible playbook against all of my labs that sets all this up for me.
Right.
Because I am a scatterbrained systems administrator. So, but with the web UI, with the storage plugin, we can see our LV data already mounted. We can see that it's using practically nothing of 28 gigs. So with that in mind, we're going to scroll over and we can see the actual drives that are installed on the system. So you can either run 27 different commands, of which each of the command line arguments are just slightly different enough to be painful. Or we can come into the web UI, go into the storage plugin, and we can come to that 16 gig drive that we saw earlier.
Right.
And we can get all of the information right here in front of us. So it says it's unrecognized data because there's no file system on this device. So what we can do is we can actually create a partition table. We can format the disk. And I believe it's under format that we can determine whether to zero out the entire disk. XFS is the recommended default. We can do LV logs. And we can put that at /log. We can do a mount now. We can set it to read only. So if we don't want to be able to write to the disk, it can mount as read only. But of course, I say it's easy and then I forgot a step. So we have that option right from the disk. But if we want to add it to our existing, physical volume group, we can do that fairly easily. Because we'll come in here to our devices, into data vol, and we're going to come over here to physical volumes. We're going to add a physical volume to that, and it already says, "Oh, hey, you've got a virtual disk here, or you've got a physical disk here that hasn't been added to a physical volume. Would you like to add it? Just click the checkbox, click Add, and now instead of running that PV create command, we've already got a dev VDC physical volume just with a couple of clicks."
Nice.
Let's see, and then if we go, didn't want to click on that, sorry. Then we want to create a new logical volume. We can call it LV Optimize for File Systems. Oh, here's something I wanted to point out, was that you can actually thinly provision a file system, which means that even though you're only using, even if you create a disk that's 20 gigs in size, you can actually, you can specify that a file system's 20 gigs in size, but you'll only be using the actual storage space within the device. So you create a 20 gig thinly provisioned file system. And if you're only using 2 gigs of that, then you're only using 2 gigs on the disk. So it gives you some space, especially in a non-production environment, to over provision. It's not quite recommended for production use unless you know exactly what you're doing. But this allows you to kind of resize volumes on the fly. But we're just going to do a block device for now. So we're going to create that logical volume, which will add our. So we'd created 28 gigs on our other disk, and so we've got 16. That leaves 4 left over. That's where the 20 gigs came from. We're going to create that LV log. So now within our volume group, we've got 2 volumes. We've got a 28 gig LV data, and we've got a 20 gig LV log. So now if we come in here, it should still show as unrecognized, but right from here, we can go through and we can create, let's call it logs because we're super original. And we'll just put it in /logs for now. We're going to mount now and format. So what that's done is it's gone in, and just with that one screen, that was like 3 or 4 of the steps that we did manually. So now if you come and look at your file systems here, we can see that we've got our LV data with 28 gigs. We've got our logs file system that's using 20 gigs of data. And then we've got our root partition that's using 2.5 gigs out of almost 64. So it's so much easier to use the web UI than it is to jump through all the different commands, all the different arguments. But there is a time. I don't think I'm saying that the command line isn't important, because there could be more advanced use cases that would benefit from using the command line. There's a whole bunch of arguments that are available within the command line, and use cases that aren't in the web UI either yet, or aren't going to be supported. Like I believe it was just a version or two ago that support for RAID volumes was added to the web UI. So before, about a year or so ago, if you wanted to actually do a RAID array, you had to do it on the command line. And then after you'd established your RAID and created the physical volume group, then you could come into Cockpit and actually create those partitions using the web UI.
All right, so where do we go from here, I guess, is the question. How do we help people just remember the steps, right? Like, because you still have to like remember the order, right?
For me, one of the best things to do is just remember you start with the hardware.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because you're talking about physical hardware, that gives you physical hardware, physical volume, and then we're going more into the software side of things. So think virtual, and then logical, because you're
nice.
So it's easiest to remember. You're going from concrete to more abstract. So hardware, physical volume, virtual volume, and then a logical or a volume group, and then a logical volume on top of that. Of course, then you just need to remember that there's a file system on top of the logical volume. Honestly, the best thing to do is to ensure that you keep good notes. My Evernote, my Apple Notes, and now my Joplin. Some of those notes, if you track their history back, are probably 12 years old, 14 years old. It's good to have those quick hitting, I only do this once every 6 months kind of thing, in order to remember those certain specific procedures. So like when I was trying to do the LV command, I literally opened up Joplin, did a search for LV Create, and the only result in all of my notes was
one note you needed.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And luckily it took me right to the part of the note where it said, hey, genius, it's -L, not -B. So, I mean, it is confusing. I will grant you. But
yeah, no, like having to do this like on the fly while on call before is not fun, because logs do fill up overnight sometimes, right?
Yeah,
like, it happens.
It's great. It's great when you have your headset on, or back in my day, you're doing this with your phone,
yeah.
and your boss is yelling at you, and you're trying to remember what the arguments are. Yeah, it's great fun to try and do this under duress. I mean, even just doing this on a casual live stream was challenging. Apparently, it helps to install LVM too, by the way.
Yeah, that's a good start to any lab about LVM. Awesome. So a little riffraff in chat to get rid of. Sorry for that, folks. Moving along here, any tips or tricks other than that, concrete to more virtual thing here, or and hey, just install Cockpit. If you're really really under duress, just install Cockpit. You can uninstall it when you're done, kind of thing, if push comes to shove, right? Like, it's faster to do that than try and remember everything. And if you screw up something, oh god,
Yeah, not that I've ever had to redeploy a VM, or not that I've ever installed Cockpit data and then reinstalled it or uninstalled it when I was done, just so the audit wouldn't come in and go, what's this?
What is this web server thing here? Yeah, no, I have I am smart enough now to know that this is data sensitive operations, and yeah, sometimes there's a way to be safe about that in a very literal sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to some of the more seasoned administrators out there, don't be too proud to use the best tool for the job. And if you're a very visual person like myself, it's easier for me to look in and see, I have these disks, they're mounted here, they have nice blue bar that tells me exactly how much space is available, don't be too proud to use the easier tool. There's this stigma about why would I take shortcuts or use automation to do this thing. I have to beat myself up with these command line arguments. No, you don't.
See, in a perfect world, you would have just shown off a playbook that asks you the right arguments. You know, right? Like seriously, right? Like you can automate this. This is, you know, and you can say, oh, this is always my disaster scenario is adding more disk from the file, you know, the filer that's off in the data center, adding more disk to this LVM group. You could literally just create an actual playbook to do that. When the alert fires, add more disks, done. You know, right? Like, or, you know, purge logs, whatever you want it to be.
Yeah,
but yeah,
we didn't, and I'm not even set up to do this at the moment, but we didn't even talk about things like log rotate or disk maintenance. That would probably be a good topic. Is what are some of the common maintenance things outside of, say, patching that that a sysadmin might do?
Log rotate is a big one because
yeah,
if you deal with databases on your systems or any kind of like high churn kind of thing, log rotate's a big deal, right? And doing that right and doing it well is a big deal. So that is a good idea for a show. All right, I got no questions here. Just a lot.
Yeah, I got no questions in the chat. So, do we want to move on to a couple of housekeeping items, a couple of announcements that we've got?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. What kind of announcements you got?
So, I wouldn't be much of a technical marketing manager if I didn't say that go to lab.redhat.com because we have a growing list of activities similar to this one. There's one on file permissions. There's one on using image builder to create a template.
Nice.
So there's a bunch of different things to do at lab.redhat.com. It's free. You don't have to pay anything. You don't have to sign up. You just go in, kick off a terminal. A lot of times we use lab.redhat.com on this show. Yeah. For our live demonstrations, and frankly, those have proven to work better than my home lab. But needless to say, I assigned myself a task of creating a disk management lab when we started planning for this episode. So you'll be able to do kind of what we did today on your own without having to spend any money or spend up any resources. So there's that. Then the other kind of housekeeping thing I wanted to mention, or not housekeeping, was RHEL 8.5 is coming. So our labs recently have been 8.4, but we've gone to a standard release cadence. So every 6 months, there's a new minor version. Every 3 years, there's a new major version. So as of yesterday, I believe, RHEL 8.5 beta is out. And if you have a Red Hat subscription or a Red Hat developer subscription, either one, you can now get access to the 8.5 beta. One of our episodes, probably in November, will be about what's new in RHEL 8.5. What are some of the cool new things you can do? So the beta is out now. The actual release date is about mid-November. I'd have to double check. Everything I've done is around the beta so far. So I knew yesterday.
I know that feeling. Trust me.
That's
the beta's out.
Eric's problem.
But I don't know when the actual release is.
That's
working on the beta.
Future Eric to remember.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we probably should have led with this, but we just kind of dove into our topic. But this show, as of today, is a year old.
Yes, it's pretty cool to have been doing this, and it's gone through 2 hosts, right? Like same show.
I'm not
same year.
Not sure if we want to celebrate that.
Well, no, I mean, but like it shows you the, you know, sustainability of it all, right? Like it just takes somebody that knows RHEL to run this show, right? Like that's really the key here.
I think the key is more who doesn't mind when his lab blows up in the middle of a demo.
That's true too. You kind of have to be able to sacrifice your home lab at any given moment.
I distinctly remember an episode with Scott where the episode's guest actually had to jump in and say, "Oh, your demo broke. No problem. I've been playing with this all morning, so here's mine." So I think there's a certain amount of resilience that's required.
Nice. All right, so we've got GitOps Guide to the Galaxy coming up here at the top of the hour. Anything else?
That's all I had. Did you have anything left to share?
I mean, we announced it yesterday on the channel, but folks, I'm leaving Red Hat to take an opportunity elsewhere. My last day is the 18th of October. I can point you to the interview that Stu Miniman did with me yesterday, where we talked about all things, OpenShift TV, more than a year later, right? Like we have actual recurring shows that are turning a year old. RHEL Presents is a perfect example, but Ask an OpenShift admin, GitOps Guide to the Galaxy, those all turned a year old a couple, weeks ago. And so, yeah, it was kind of a nice episode to talk about the progress. And then also to say that, yes, I am leaving the company here on the 18th. So I'll see you at KubeCon. But yeah, that's all I got for now. And thank you for dropping that link to the beta. Appreciate it.
No problem.
So you want to wrap or you good?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you for getting this up and running, because this will be our last episode together. But never fear, if you're watching this, I intend to keep this going. I'm looking for I'm going to be looking for a co-host to help me out, and we'll keep this going. Nice. In fact, I think we're looking at writing up a listener survey to kind of get your all's feedback and make this show better. Obviously, once I'm done rebuilding my lab, we won't have that problem as much. But so never fear, RHEL Presents is going to continue. We'll just miss you, Chris. We'll have to bring you back on as a guest or something.
Okay.
Or just do a roast of you in a few months.
That works too.
But with that, that's all I have, except for the if you're watching on Twitch and you haven't heard, there was a big security breach. So reset your password.
Yes, please.
That's
if it hasn't been forced upon you already.
Right. Yeah, that's our public service announcement for this episode. But
yes.
Other than that, that's all I got, Chris.
All right. Well, awesome. Thanks for a great show, Eric. And coming up next on the channel, GitOps Guide to the Galaxy. We're going to be talking about advanced cluster security or advanced container security. So hang on tight, or as Samuel L. Jackson said in Jurassic Park, hold on to your butts. So stay safe out there and see you soon.
I'll talk to you all later.